throw it out. I had to scream and shout. Before I turn to dust, I've got to throw it out. Before I turn to...
Hello, Sally Libby.
Hello, Michael Small.
In the last episode we did about Eazy-E, you heard my first interview with him, most of which ended up in my book about rap music.
Break it down!
I wonder if you're going to shout the title every time I say the words, my book about rap music.
Break it down!
I guess we have our answer. Anyway, this time I want to try sharing some of my other audio interviews and artifacts about Eazy-E, the things that did not make it into my book or my articles.
Hey, if it didn't get in the article, why save it for 40 years so we have to hear it now?
Did I just hear the royal we? Consider this, oh Queen Sally. When I listened again to the tapes and looked at the papers, it brought back another time in a really powerful and surprising way. Would you at least be willing to give a listen and tell me if you agree?
Well, since you're my loyal subject, I'll grant your wish.
Why, thank you, sire. And since I'm experimenting, I want to start at the end and move backwards.
You're a madman.
Unfortunately, the ending is an unhappy one. Eazy-E was so important to anyone who followed gangster rap. When he died in 1995, it was a huge shock. Very upsetting.
It really was surprising that he died of pneumonia related to AIDS. Back then, a lot of people still thought AIDS was limited to gay men or people who shared needles.
The consensus is that Eazy got AIDS from heterosexual sex. He sure did brag about his skills with women. He rapped this: "Well, I'm Eazy-E, I got bitches galore. You may have a lot of bitches, but I got more."
It's not quite as convincing coming out of your mouth.
That boasting might have been Eazy's fatal flaw. Remember how he told me that he used condoms, but he had a bottle of tetracycline, and he thought he'd take it if he ever ran into trouble?
That was not going to work for him.
Of course, there were alternate theories about how Eazy got sick. In Straight Outta Compton,
The movie I watched at your command.
remember the scenes with Suge Knight?
That big tough guy, a friend of Dr. Dre's, right? He's the one who beat up Eazy, in the movie anyway.
Apparently, that scene has at least an element of truth. It's been said that Suge threatened Eazy to try to get Dr. Dre out of his contract.
Right.
Side note, if that fight ever happened, Suge may have won, but he lost the war. Eazy assured me that he still got royalty checks from Dre's records. Every time Dre wrote lyrics that attacked Eazy, it just meant more money for Eazy.
So Eazy-E was crying all the way to the bank.
In 2003, Suge went on Jimmy Kimmel Live after getting out of prison for a parole violation. And he joked that someone could get AIDS by being injected with infected blood. He even said, like that Eazy-E thing.
No.
I put a link to the clip on our website at throwitoutpodcast.com. You can watch it and decide for yourself.
Is it possible?
Some people thought so. A few medical experts weighed in and said you couldn't get AIDS that way. Poking him with needles wouldn't do it.
Either way, I can't believe anyone would joke about that. Where is Suge now?
Oh, he's in prison again, serving a 28-year sentence for hitting and killing someone with his car.
Oh,
It happened after an argument about that movie you saw.
I can't even believe that happened.
It sure did.
But there's no proof that Suge was involved with Eazy's death. So is it possible that Eazy knew he was sick for a long time and he didn't tell anyone?
That seems unlikely, based on what I heard from a few people, including Russell Simmons. You know who he is?
In this case, I actually have a clue. I think he ran the Def Jam Comedy Hour on TV, right?
Well, yes, but that shows your bias for comedy, because he was a lot better known as the producer of Run DMC, the creator of the record label. He created the Fat Farm clothing line. He was a movie producer. I don't know, he had a ton of other businesses. Unfortunately, his reputation shifted in 2017 when 13 women accused him of sexual misconduct, and that included Luann de Lesseps.
The Real Housewife?
Yep. And then Jenny Lumet, who's an actress and screenwriter, wrote a very detailed article about her experiences with him in The Hollywood Reporter. After that, Simmons stepped back from his businesses.
Every angle of this story involves controversy.
Yes, and I can already hear some people saying rap music caused all these problems, which is total bullshit. I spoke with more rap stars than most people on this planet, and the vast majority of them were among the most ethical, thoughtful, generous people I've ever met. You cannot pin the actions of Suge Knight or Russell Simmons on rappers and rap music any more than you blame all movie producers for what Harvey Weinstein did or all actors for what Bill Cosby did.
Your point is taken.
Okay then, getting back to Russell Simmons. When I interviewed him, he added another surprising detail about Eazy's last months.
4 weeks ago, I had dinner with Eazy at the Bowery Bar. He looked 100% healthy.
Were you meaning to talk about business or?
Yeah, he's licensed a record from Zone Thugs and Harmony for the soundtrack I'm producing. We had a 5-hour dinner.
You're at a 5-hour dinner.
Yeah, we started like 7 and it was over about 12:31. No one knew he was sick. He didn't say he was sick.
So that dinner was in February, and Eazy went into the hospital when?
That was February 24th, and then he died on March 26th.
It doesn't seem possible.
This is why so many people didn't believe it was AIDS. But I spoke at length with a public relations officer at the hospital where Eazy died. It was Cedars-Sinai, and she confirmed the details. She also said that Eazy was admitted for bronchial problems. They found out that he and his family had a history of asthma.
So that's why they showed him coughing near the end of the movie.
But you got to keep in mind what Russell Simmons and other rappers told me. Eazy didn't seem sick right up until February. That's why I think it makes sense for me to share a little bit of my interview at the hospital, just so you get it from a neutral source. Unfortunately, with all my phone interviews after Eazy died, you hear me clacking away on my computer keyboard. It does make it a little hard to hear, but I'll keep it short so it doesn't drive you crazy. Here's what she said.
The way the doctor put it, symptoms of progressive breathing problems. And 5 days later, the test came back and they showed he had full-blown AIDS. And then he got much sicker very quickly. His health worsened dramatically. The doctor admitted him to the intensive care unit on the 15th of March. There was a lot of rumors he was going to do better. It never was true. It was always fairly evenly critical.
The rumor going around is that someone saw his medical records and that he knew he had AIDS for a long time. Is there any response to this particular rumor?
That's totally news to me or to anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And I know the doctor had said that from what he had known, that they had not been established that he had AIDS. And according to what the doctor said yesterday, there's no record like that.
That's scary. He went so fast.
Yes. But doctors confirmed that there are other cases where AIDS progressed at this speed. It was rare, but it happened. Also, along with the asthma, Eazy had another challenge that may have contributed to the speed of his death. I got a hint of that from Eazy's former business partner, Jerry Heller. He had this to say about Eazy before he died.
There's just a lot of questions here, Michael. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. It would be hard for me to believe that he did know. I can tell you that I sure didn't know. And I know that a couple of years ago, he started getting sick, cold. Then he got that bad flu. You know, the man never slept. He was up. He would work 16, 18, 48 hours in a row. It turned into bronchitis. I can't explain it, Michael. I just go around in circles. You know, when I try and think it through, and then all of a sudden, man, he died.
I never would have pictured Eazy as a workaholic. He seems so laid back.
I told you, he was complicated, and his death was a real warning to the rap community. I talked about that with Method Man.
There you go, name dropping again.
Well, truth be told, when I interviewed him, I had no idea who he was, but I should have known. He was already famous for performing with the Wu-Tang Clan. Later, he went on to a lot of major acting roles. He played Cheese on The Wire. He played Rodney on The Deuce. This is one of those types of interviews that wouldn't normally get shared. The writer would grab a quote and toss the rest. But his voice is so rich and he has such a vivid way of putting things. So I want to share it. Here's what he said.
I met him before it happened and stuff. Yeah, he gave me a joint. me and Redman and stuff. But yo, man, it's deep. You know what I'm saying? Because it's even deeper now because it's hitting home, meaning the hip hop community. So it's hitting us. It's like, yo, because Eazy-E, he like the brother next door. You know what I'm saying? So when you see it happen to him, it's time to wake up and smell the coffee. That's why, as for myself, I speak for myself. I don't, when I go on the road, man, I strictly write rhymes or I bug out with my peoples. Females do be around. You know what I'm saying? But as for me, you know, doing that thing, if I'm going to do it, man, I got to be protected at all times. You'll play yourself going up in any of them things, raw deal, man.
I did a book about rap, and I interviewed Eazy-E, and he said the same thing. He said he protected himself, too.
Yeah, well, it's one thing to say it and another thing to do it, man. Now, I feel for him. It's heartbroken, you know what I'm saying? Big up to his family and all that. Hopefully they ain't got it either, his babies that he just had, because he's going to live on forever through his children. That's the best thing that came out of this whole thing for Eazy-E. And that's just about it, man. All I could tell these brothers is to do is protect their neck. For real, they joints, protect your neck in a whole different aspect now. Because if it could hit him, it could hit anybody. If it could hit Magic, it could hit anybody. And it don't discriminate.
I wonder to what extent his reaction represented the rap community, and if anyone listened to him.
Of course, I can't speak for everyone, but I interviewed another rapper named Rodney O. He was a friend of Eazy's, and his reaction was also really thoughtful. Check this out.
Do you think this is going to open people's eyes or not?
You know what? I really can't say that because, I mean, it's like, you know how people are. It can never happen to me, this, that type of attitude. I think it's an individual thing, you know what I'm saying? You can tell people to use a condom or not to, and they're going to do what they want to do and suffer the consequences later. You know what I'm saying? I'm a realist, and I hate to say it, but people are hard-headed, and we all know that we can get 50 people in a room, and there's going to be 40 people to say the sky's blue, and there's going to be 10 assholes to say it's green. And it's always going to be like that, man. I mean, I would like to see this world change for the better and all that, but I honestly feel it's too late. Those who go down the right path and choose to do the right thing will be okay, but everybody else, man, I just don't see it.
Is there any indication that he was taking drugs or what?
No, I just think, I mean, of course somebody might say they was and this and that, but I really doubt it. I've heard stories about the little parties and things like that, so I can easily see, well, you never know what people do. You never know what people like, you know what I'm saying?
I keep thinking about the mothers of Eazy's children. There were about 10 of them, right?
10 might be an exaggeration. In his obituary in the Washington Post, the official word was that he had 8 kids by 7 mothers.
And none of the mothers contracted AIDS, right?
Which is extremely lucky, especially for his girlfriend, Tamika Woods. She was pregnant with their son.
Whoa, that must have been terrible for her.
Yes, definitely. But Tamika ended up better off than other people in Eazy's life.
Another twist?
A big one. It all started in 1991. That's when Eazy met Tamika at a nightclub. Back then, she was working as an assistant to a guy who'd been in the music business forever. His name was Clarence Avant. And he later became chairman of Motown. So Tamika definitely knew something about the music business, which she learned from him. In a later interview, she said she wasn't interested in Eazy when they first met, but something must have changed because she was his girlfriend and really his main girlfriend for years after that.
He sure didn't give the impression of being the kind of guy who would settle down with one woman. In the interview he did with you, he pretty much told you that he was sleeping around.
But he also said he had one main partner, remember? Now, we don't know if that was Tamika or someone else. What we do know is just 1 or 2 months before his death, Eazy broke off his business relationship with Jerry Heller. Apparently, Eazy knew a lawyer named Ron Sweeney, so Eazy hired Sweeney to help with all the legal details of breaking with Jerry. A few weeks later, Eazy went into the hospital, and that's when Sweeney's role expanded suddenly. All public communication came from him.
Eazy was sick and needed help, so he hired him.
That sounds plausible, but then Sweeney became closely aligned with Tamika Woods. 12 days 12 days before Eazy's death, when he was either in the ICU or about to go in the ICU, they held a wedding ceremony in the hospital, and Tamika became Eazy's first wife, officially. Around that same time, Eazy's will was rewritten.
And you said you have a copy of the will?
I do. I'm not sure how I got it. Someone must have sent it to me when I was reporting my story. Look, I got it right here in my hand.
What does it say?
Well, it says a lot. Everything Eazy owned was put into a trust. His money, his business, his royalty agreements, I don't know, it's his many cars. He had a Chevrolet that was red from 1964 and another one that was white from 1964. His jewelry's listed, his houses. There's one in Norwalk, one in Calabasas. His furnishings are listed, collectibles, all his possessions. And the executors of the trust, they were Ron Sweeney and Tamika Woods, not his parents, not his brother or sister. And we know from what the hospital told us, he made this decision when he was really sick.
If he thought he was going to die, he could have made a lot of decisions he wouldn't have made if he felt fine.
True. And Rodney O, the rapper I mentioned earlier, talked to me a bit about the scene in the hospital because he went to visit. I think it's worth sharing that. Here it is.
Did you go by the hospital when he was sick?
Yeah, we went by and, his family and stuff. So we just brought him some flowers and basically, a little card just saying, that our thoughts was with him, man, because, nobody expected this, of course.
So he confirmed that Eazy's family was there, but none of them were executors of the will.
Maybe he was estranged from them? But I get where you're going. It's a bit odd.
Yeah, and there are other details that kind of explain it. Tamika said in a later interview that she gave notice at her job right before Eazy got sick and that she was planning already to become general manager of Ruthless Records. So that explains some of what happened. But it did not stop the lawsuits that followed. In my box, I also found a copy of a suit by Mike Klein, who was a manager at Ruthless Records, the label that Eazy and Jerry started. The suit claims that Eazy was in weak physical and mental state when he was forced, and it says, with undue influence, to get married and change his will. Now that suit was settled out of court, but some of the mothers of Eazy's children also filed suits for more support, and Jerry filed a suit, and it was messy.
Were any of the lawsuits successful?
Not as far as I could find.
So maybe there's a simple explanation. Tamika and Eazy were surprised by the speed that he went downhill.
True.
They didn't plan for it. They couldn't plan for it. So they had to make a lot of financial arrangements at the last minute. Now, here's what I wonder. In Straight Outta Compton, they made it look like Eazy was poor at the end. But if he was so poor, why did everyone sue for his money?
Good question. When Tamika was named the head of Ruthless Records, it certainly had value. Look at the value that came out of that movie. Tamika was a producer. She must have made a nice sum.
Eazy did okay by Tamika.
And that's another unexpected thing. Eazy did okay by a lot of people. He was known as a drug dealer who then was a gangster rapper, but that wasn't the real person. He actually was very generous to friends and family, and he was a big supporter of many charities, especially one called Athletes and Entertainers for Kids. I called that charity, and I have a tape where they list event after event where Eazy gave his time and lots of money. Here's what Jerry told me about it.
Eric loved children more than anything. He loved children. He would think nothing of renting a half a dozen buses, taking 500 kids to the Black Rodeo or Raging Waters or Magic Mountain or Disneyland. And he was never really happy unless he was with young people. He loved children. He loved his children. He was a wonderful father. It's hard to say he was a good husband because he had so many girlfriends that he had children with, but he took care of his children. And I know because that was one of my jobs. Children went to the finest schools and were dressed right. There was always birthday parties and Christmas parties. He loved his children.
Hearing Jerry speak makes me think of the way Paul Giamatti played him in the movie. So similar.
If Jerry were here today, he might not take too kindly to that. When he died of a heart attack in 2016, he had seen the movie, and he filed more lawsuits about the way he was portrayed.
Yeah, It wasn't exactly complimentary.
That movie did a great job of conveying how Ice Cube felt and Dr. Dre and Tomika, but there was a lot that they left out, such as maybe Jerry was a difficult person, but he was no fly-by-night huckster. Before NWA, he worked as an agent or manager with tons of big artists. I looked it up. There was like Marvin Gaye, Van Morrison, Ike and Tina Turner, Black Sabbath, Journey, Crosby, Stills and Nash.
Whoa.
He also set up the first U.S. tour for Elton John. Of course, we have no idea if he had good relationships with all these performers.
Either way, he was no stranger to the music business and how all the deals are set up.
Right. And guess who was the first to make a connection with Jerry?
Barbara Streisand?
It was Dr. Dre and Ice Cube, not Eazy. Yeah, Jerry was manager of Ice Cube's group CIA and Dre's group World Class Wreckin' Crew, and it was their friend Alonzo Williams who introduced Eazy to Jerry.
But they hated Jerry.
Not at first. And by the way, World Class Wreckin' Crew was no gangster rap group. Dr. Dre's first group wore gold lame and lace and biker shorts on stage and made a kind of disco rap. That gangsta thing did not happen until Eazy-E started Ruthless Records. And if you don't believe me, you can find a YouTube clip of the Wreckin' Crew on our website, throwitoutpodcast.com.
Didn't Ice Cube and Dre say that Jerry and Eazy were cheating them?
They did. When I asked Jerry about that, he made a good point. He claimed that they never sued him. And if they were getting cheated, why didn't they sue? Here's how Eazy-E explains the situation.
Okay, we all started together.
I know, you were really good friends, weren't
I
you?
own the company.
Yeah,
I formed NWA,
yeah,
and I'm a solo artist myself.
yeah,
And so he couldn't take it me getting paid from the company.
yeah,
Plus I'm in the group,
yeah,
and plus I'm my own solo. So that's like me getting paid like 3 different times, you know?
yeah.
And they couldn't see that. I
Yeah.
mean, if I put up all the money, I run the company, I do this, I do that. I mean, it was 5 of us in a group, so
But
we
didn't he,
split shit
did he
5
write the
ways.
songs? He wanted songwriting royalties? And
He
wasn't
got
getting it?
songwriters. Whatever he wrote on, he got paid for
Yeah.
whatever he wrote on.
Yeah,
Everything. I mean, it wasn't no screwing, nobody telling him, this. And I just guess it was a big group and everybody get their share of it. And I probably got twice as much because I got the company and myself.
yeah.
Fascinating.
And here's how Jerry explains it in a way that's actually quite generous.
I still say that the reason that NWA broke up wasn't because of any alleged transgression on the part of Ruthless. It was because there was too much talent in this one group. It would be like if Magic Johnson and Michael Jordan and Anthony Hardaway were in the same backcourt. I mean, it was just too much talent. It just couldn't exist. It was busting at the seams. So, when guys like Dre would say that he had been not accounted to properly, what they were really saying is, hey man, we're just too big and too talented to be in this group, and we deserve to be on our own. On the other hand, Eazy was really saying, hey, I found you, I discovered you, I conceptualized, I put you together, and you got to live up to your contract.
So if Jerry was so positive about all this, why did Eazy break off with him 2 months before he died?
That we'll never know. It's always possible that they disagreed about the direction of the business. But when I interviewed Jerry, he would not even confirm that they had a split. I have my own theory. Want to hear it?
Go for it.
Jerry told me that Eazy was obsessed with staging an NWA reunion in 1995, and he knew that Dre and Ice Cube would never join a reunion as long as Jerry was involved.
So he ended their relationship to pull off this project? It's slightly plausible.
Just remember, they would have made a lot of money from that project, and it might have been worth it. Anyway, now that I've piqued your interest, I want to play you a little more from my interview with Jerry. Maybe I'm naive.
You said it, not me.
Okay, but it sure sounds to me as if Jerry still had great love for Eazy-E, no matter what happened between them 2 months before I got this interview.
What this young man was able to do, and he was virtually a child when I met him, what he was able to do was, Ice Cube would write a lyric, and Eric would say, a little corny. Or Dre would produce something and Eric would say, well, maybe we should do it this way. In his own understated way, even though he wasn't the writer in the group, even though he wasn't the producer in the group, he would push people to achieve things that they couldn't do on their own. He would do it in a very understated way without saying, hey, asshole, this is the way you should do it. And he had the ability to make the total more than the sum of its parts. He could make 2 plus 2 equal 5. And he did. He pushed me to make the same deals for rap artists that heretofore had been reserved only for white groups, for the Rolling Stones and the Beatles and people like that. And he had this vision. He also had this incredible ability to make people to believe in people before they believed in themselves. He was very, very insightful. He was bigger than life. He was the little big man. He was a wonderful person. He was a terrific guy, Michael.
One thing that we didn't really touch on is how this all has left you feeling.
Every day I got up for the last 8 years. I got up and, my life was Ruthless Records and, Eazy and NWA's career, and all of a sudden, he's gone. Left me in I can't even explain it, man. Just can't explain it. I'm just devastated by it.
I think I'm with you. I believe it too.
It seems like such a contradiction, but this major figure in gangster rap was loved by many people. When he entered the hospital, they got 5,000 phone calls in 2 days.
Whoa.
More than ever in the history of the hospital. More than when Lucille Ball and George Burns were there. To try to give a better sense of how people felt about him, I want to go back to that interview with the rapper Rodney O. He never became a huge rap superstar, but man, the way he talked, his use of language is so beautiful.
That's no surprise. Rappers are all about language.
But what really gets me is his empathy, his kindness. This is not what everyone expects from rappers. It's kind of a long clip, but I love to hear him talk. I hope you will too.
It's been hard for me to sleep, man, and stuff like that. For one, the reason being is because we started out together. You know what I'm saying? It's like when my first record came out, his record came out, and this was the time when the West Coast rappers were really starting to put the records out and really starting to make a dent, in the music business. And, it just hits real close to home, man, because, if you started out together with somebody from day one, and then something happens to them, and you were so close to them and doing the same thing and had the same goals, it hits close to home. It made me feel sad, and then on the other hand, it made me feel humble too, because no, I haven't reached the success as an Eazy-E and made as much money as an Eazy-E, but would I trade places with them now? No. So it made me humble and sad at the same time. I think the main thing that made me feel funny about the whole situation was just, how did he react, to the news and for him to have taken the music business so far and make all that money, that all that went out the drain, I'm sure. What I'm saying, personally to him once he found this out. I was really trying to just basically put myself in his shoes because I was so close to what he was doing, you know what I'm saying? And I just put myself in his shoes, and man, that's something terrible to have to deal with.
When you're telling people about Eazy-E, do you have a particular memory?
Any encounter that I've ever had with him, I remember now. You know what I'm saying? We basically stayed in the same, 10-mile radius, so I would see him driving along down the street, and we'd see each other and pull over and talk. I would do shows. Matter of fact, we just did this lowrider show at the sports arena. It was like 50,000 people there. We had a concert there, and at that time, this was like 4 or 5 months ago.
Did he seem sick to you at the time?
No, not at all, because I would say to myself, even if he was, I'm sure he wouldn't have been there, and I'm sure he wouldn't have been, as happy as he was or seemed to be. But it was like, I don't know, it's just every situation that I was in with him now is just weird to me. I just look back on it now, and it's just weird. I've lost a brother before, but it almost feels like I've lost another one. And we didn't hang out on a day-to-day basis, so I can imagine the people that's close to him. And I've even called Jerry Heller, you know, and he wasn't no longer working for Eazy. I called him because I just said to myself, anybody who's been with somebody for 9 years, you know, it's got to affect you.
When you went to the hospital, though, he was too sick to see people at the time.
Right. He was unconscious. And basically what I wanted to do was just go by there and let him know that I was there. Let him know that, you know, that we did care and I did respect the man. I think everybody did, even Trey, Death Row Records, everybody that he's had conflict. You have to respect somebody who can, who did the things he did. And if you don't, I mean, something's wrong with you.
You're right. I love that. I wonder where he is now. I hope he's doing well. Let's put a link to his music on the website. Maybe he'll find some new fans.
Excellent idea. Now I have one last tape to share with you, and it's a biggie. I had one more experience with Eazy-E that was different from almost every interview I ever did. It goes back to 1992 and the verdict for the Rodney King trial. Do you remember about that?
I remember that Rodney King was beaten by LA police officers, and it might have been the first time that someone caught it on tape.
It was one of the major events that led up to the Black Lives Matter movement. Daryl Gates at that time was head of the LAPD, and he encouraged the force to be aggressive in a way that was terrible for the Black and Latin communities. So in March 1991, Rodney King had his car pulled over after a police chase of some sort, and then he was beaten for many minutes, resulting in skull fractures and brain damage.
Oh.
Do you remember the verdict from the jury, which, by the way, was mostly white?
The police were acquitted, right? And then riots broke out in LA.
Those riots were intense. Large parts of South Central were burned. Tons of looting. Thousands of people were injured. Thousands were arrested. Something like 50 people died. It lasted 5 days, even after the National Guard and federal troops were brought in to bring peace. I was recruited to help with the coverage for People, so they flew me to LA, and on May 3rd, which happened to be my 35th birthday, I met Eazy, who drove me around Compton and South Central in his Mercedes on the last day of the riots. I happened to have my tape recorder, so I recorded it, and I found the tape in one of my boxes.
Okay, I no longer think that everything you've kept in those boxes is junk.
Thank you, Sally. What I'm about to play, I took out some parts that were too hard to hear or just repetitive, but I left in as much as I could, just so you could get the feel of what it was like for two of us to witness this. He was driving. You can actually hear when he uses the blinker or puts on his seatbelt. I was in the front seat, and we had two guards in the back seat who apparently were armed. I hope you find it interesting. Both black and white people saying that they made them sick to see what was going on, and other people saying I was glad at everything that happened. It just made me happy.
Say I'm glad at everything that happened because a lot of shit didn't make no sense. As far as them doing all the looting. But they took it from one thing. I could see them acting up for the verdict. They was, disappointed at that, not guilty. And that'd make them act a fool. But then it got out of hand. It started getting to where people start looting and tearing up stuff, and they figured if they could get it free, why not keep doing it? And then that went away from the Rodney King thing. Yeah. And they figured, okay, we get all this shit free. Why not take it? And that's when everybody started taking more, and police not stopping nobody from doing nothing, so they took advantage of it. You see on TV, somebody going in and out of the store, and the police standing right there, and they just watch them get out, making sure they're not going to burn it down, but they could take everything they want. Right. I was thinking, I was wondering if it was Gates. He didn't have them doing nothing. He didn't send him in there to do nothing. I figured he's going to give a fuck about the community anyway and let them just tear it down. I don't have to be here.
Well, wasn't he just trying to avoid another, police brutality thing?
I mean, they could have stopped him.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't have to actually sit there and beat him.
Yeah, exactly.
To stop him from doing it.
That's the looting. What about the fact of people who were pulled out of their cars and beaten?
That was unnecessary. A lot of those same people that they pull out of cars, it was probably was upset about the verdict themselves.
Yeah.
A lot of them, just like in the paper, it said a lot of them was going to visit black friends or whatever, and a lot of them didn't have nothing to do with it. What they should have did, they should have went to Simi Valley and did everything while they was having that verdict. I mean, they should have tore up down there. They should have got the police officers that they was really upset at. Everybody tearing up their whole neighborhood. It didn't make no damn sense.
Yeah. One of the other things I heard is that you got a house in Simi Valley?
Not no more.
Did you move out of there because of the racism you felt there? Or?
Well, they came by and did no shit at my house, and they can go home and go back to Compton and shit like that before.
They wrote go back to Compton?
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever personally had run-ins with the police?
Getting harassed and shit like that? Yeah, that's why we made that song, Fuck the Police.
What can you remember a specific thing that happened?
Not really. I mean, it really don't matter. You're getting harassed, it's harassed, whether how it happened or whatever.
Yeah. But it's
fuck with you just to fuck with
at the time that you were harassed, were you doing, like, did they pick you up for a legitimate thing, like not stopping at a stop sign, or did they just pick you up for nothing?
Stereotype.
Was it like you're in your car and they pull you over, or is it you're walking down the street?
You could be in the car, you could be walking down the street, it don't matter.
Would a cop use, say something racist, or would he hit you, or what would he do?
Some of them do. I mean, this shit been going on for years, but it's nothing different.
Did you see this coming? Did you think this was going to happen, or were you surprised?
Yeah, I thought it was going to be a lot worse.
You did?
No surprise. To nobody, really.
Do you see that this whole thing can make it worse between people? Or do you think there's a chance it'll make it better because it'll make people open their eyes?
Seems like it made it worse right now.
Nice.
There must be some shit going on. Look, got this motherfucking helicopter right here.
Yeah.
You got this motherfucking helicopter right here. Right here, National Guard. You got up here, they got a roadblock up here.
Oh, yeah.
Where this shit at, in the trunk?
Do you know anybody who owned a place that was hit?
It's a liquor store I used to go to right here.
Oh, that one?
Dark's Liquor.
Yeah. Well, we could do a photo right here.
You want to do a photo right there?
Yeah.
Gotta hurry up.
Okay.
Can't be like hanging around.
Okay.
Let's do it and get the fuck on.
There was a pause here so we could get out of the car to take a photo. It turns out that there was some kind of shotgun in the trunk. I don't know anything about guns. It looked like a toy to me, but it wasn't. Eazy wanted to pose with the gun. Now, I knew we'd never use that photo with people, but I wasn't about to start interfering. I figured we'd get other pictures later, but I did ask him about why he did it. And here's what he told me after we started driving again. Why did you decide, why'd you make that decision to go on with the shotgun?
I mean that I'm ready at all times, no matter what goes down. Ready for police or whatever.
To be perfectly honest, that seems like part of your stage show, but in real life, you don't seem like to me like somebody who'd carry around a gun like that.
Oh, yeah, I carry around a gun. Matter of fact, we have several right now.
We do?
Just like the National Guards are ready?
Yeah.
We ready.
I mean, obviously you were that way before this riot happened.
Yeah, all the time.
Is it partly to protect yourself against police, or is it mostly to protect yourself against gangs, or what?
I don't have nothing against the gangs or whatever. I mean, right now it's figured since the police got away with beating Rodney King, they figured they could go around and beating on anybody else, and they could get away with it too.
Yeah.
So it's like open season on whoever. I won't just say open season on all blacks, because it's everybody. Mexicans, blacks, Samoans, whatever. It's not much. They're like from a different side of the gangs. They're from like the blood areas.
Yeah. And they're together in the same car?
Yeah, it's two of them from different areas.
Did people hang out together like that before the truth?
Very few.
Yeah.
What's up? That's Shaheed. He's the head of the Muslims.
Come on there, brother. They were easy. How you brothers doing? How you doing? All right.
I want to pause once more to explain what you hear next. Because it's not what we would expect. At least back then, the car culture of Compton was so different from what we know in the East. If you drove by someone you knew, you'd pull over and chat. And Eazy-E knew everybody, so we were honking and waving, pulling over to talk with people. In this particular case, we drove by some of his neighbors in the Nation of Islam who ran a mosque in Compton. It was definitely an uneasy feeling for all of us when we got out of the car just because of what was going on in the neighborhood at that time. But one of the speakers who was going to talk at the service that day was very open with me, and he was willing to talk. I thought his words were so powerful. I really want to share them here, and just kind of bear in mind, this is someone talking on the last day of the LA riots on the streets of Compton.
How are you going to address the issues of what's just happened here?
Our leading teacher told us about this 1 year ago. What he said is that America has been unjust.
Yeah.
They have been our 400-year-old open enemy. And they are unjust. They have never gave us justice. They give us crumbs, kibbles, and bits, but they never addressed the problem right here into America. They address the problem every place else in the world. They address the problem in any other country, but they don't deal with their own. We have built America. We have fought for America. We have bled for America. We died for America, and America treat us like dogs. Their dogs get fed better than us, and their cats get fed better than us, and they care for their cats.
Do you think there's going to have to be more fighting?
I think there should be a peaceful resolution to the problem, and it will be the solution. But us as a people need to separate from white people.
So you don't think blacks and whites are going to be able to do it together?
Blacks and whites been together for 400 years, and we always been on the bottom.
Yeah.
We've always been the walking mat for white people. We always been the enemy to white people, no matter how much we've tried. Martin Luther King tried to bring blacks and whites together, and whites killed him. Now, why would we, as a civilized people, with the knowledge of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Minister Farrakhan, even think that white people are going to give us justice? They didn't give Rodney King justice. They didn't give Oliver Beasley justice. They didn't give none of our people justice. Anytime we go into their court system work for white folks.
Are you aware that lots and lots of white people are furious about the result of the King case?
Yeah, because they understand it's a time to change. They understand that the white government is unjust themselves. They understand it's a time for wickedness to come out of power and for God's rule to come in power.
Now, in this particular neighborhood, are there particular plans on what to do about the destruction, what the next step is going to be?
The next step should be we build up our own communities. We take control of our own communities. We should love our own communities better now than other people that come in our communities and dog us out, bottom us out, and slew us with our dollars.
Now, are you a native of Compton or from somewhere else?
Yes, I'm of Compton.
And what's your name? Is that a problem?
Yeah, it's a problem.
Well, what do you want me to call you in the article?
Just say the brother. The brother from Mars 54.
Okay.
Thank you for that. I'm glad I heard it.
Thank you for listening to it with me. After that, we got back in the car. There's just a little bit more to our drive, so here it is.
So where we going now? You want to go up in LA a little bit?
Yeah, wherever you want to go.
See,
Where you would have been.
Mine.
That was your territory.
You know.
Do you think people have an opinion about Compton that maybe isn't true? It doesn't seem to me that it's like the war zone that everybody declares it to be. It sort of depends, doesn't it? Can you live a safe life there without worrying about crime, or do you have to worry about it?
I think you always got to worry about crime.
Mm-hmm.
I think no place is safe to live without worrying about crime.
You just never been to Topsfield, Massachusetts.
No, they don't worry about nothing.
They don't worry about crime.
They don't worry about breaking and getting. But you got alarms on their house.
Not alarms. Well, maybe it's changed since I was growing up. No, we used to lock the door most of the time.
Lock the door. You got a lock on it. You're worried about something.
Yeah.
Okay. But other than that, you wouldn't have it locked.
But I don't think I met one person in my entire childhood who was a victim of a crime in Topsfield, Massachusetts.
Everybody must know each other and everything else.
No, they don't all know each other, but you would have been bored out of your mind there, so.
I wonder if it's like that now.
Yeah, it is.
Some of them kids that you knew turned into mass murderers.
You mean other than me? I tried kicked the murdering habit a few weeks ago, but I don't know. Oh, look at this.
What more can they do to this building? Look, black owner.
Should we
They
go
gave
into
a
the...
damn about
Should we
that.
pull over there?
No, they say black power. Black and Mexican power.
And that was the absurd range of our conversation. 1 minute, we're talking about Topsfield, Massachusetts, where you and I grew up. The next minute, we're talking about business owners in Compton who had to put up a sign about being black-owned so their businesses wouldn't get burned down in a riot.
It was a little strange that you decided to talk about Topsfield.
I don't think Eazy saw it that way. He talked about his home, and I talked about mine.
Well, I guess it makes more sense if you see it as two people who have known each other for a year, riding through LA together during one specific moment in time.
So much has changed since then. Because of cell phones, there have been so many more cases of police brutality that were caught on video. And things must have improved a bit in LA because the riots caused Police Chief Daryl Gates to resign. And then there was a follow-up to the Rodney King trial where the verdict was overturned and the officers retired from the force. Even Compton has changed a lot. Now it's mostly a Latinx city, and there are new leaders who've helped to lower the crime rate. A lot, by the way. And then there's the personal stuff. Eazy's gone. Jerry's gone. And I'm no spring chicken. The only thing that hasn't changed is I put those things in the box and didn't want to throw them out back then, and I still don't want to throw them out.
I'm not sure what you want me to say. I'm supposed to be helping you get rid of it.
Can we talk about that later? For now, I want to pay one last tribute to Eazy-E by reading words that will be familiar to many rap fans. Maybe they'll tie things up too for anyone who's just learning about him. This is from his song, Easier Said Than Done. My name is Eazy, or just call me E, but it doesn't really matter to me because I'm the same person, whether serious or rehearsing. I just gotta keep cursing. This is for the radio, so I better chill. They won't play it if I could get ill. But I'm like that, and that's actually a fact, because the street is where my heart is at. Yo, I don't do dope, but I'm dope. Not a dope, but I'm doper than anybody who tries to cope with the rhyme that I'm displaying and the beat that I'm playing. Yo, you could try all day and you still won't match up with the ruthless POW. Cause Eazy's doing it Compton style. That's the city. And you say you could get some. Yo, it's easier said than done. And that's it for my Eazy-E memories.
I couldn't throw it out. I had to scream and shout.
Thank you to our brilliant audio advisor, Willie Mandeville, who made those old clips sound better than they would have sounded. And to the very famous Nancy for storing those tapes in her very famous garage. Sally, will you do the honors to entice listeners to give us another chance?
If anyone out there wants updates and online-only extras about our podcast, please go to Twitter or Instagram and follow us at Throw It Out Pod. Or you can go to our website and look in the right column where you can sign up for our newsletter. Then you'll always know when new episodes come out. And while you're at it, check out our playlist of essential songs by Eazy-E and NWA. You'll find all this and more at throwitoutpodcast.com.
Okay, Sally, that's a wrap.
I told you the puns are my department.
We can argue about that next time.
Absolutely. Bye, Mike.
Bye, Sal.
Out here in Nancy's, her big garage. This isn't a mirage. Decades of stories, memories stacked. There is a redolence of some irrelevant facts. But I couldn't throw it out. I had to scream and shout. It all seems so unjust, but still I know I must. Before I turn to dust, I've got to throw it out. Before I turn to dust, I've got to throw it out. But I couldn't throw it out. reflections in these painful sessions. I guess this is what it's about. The poems, cards, and papers, the moldy, musty vapors. I've just gotta sort it out.